Very warm welcome to the second of a series of 6 talks hosted by Gayfield Creative Spaces with the generous assistance of Creative Scotland. I'm absolutely delighted to be able to be the person to welcome you tonight. I have had the pleasure over 30 years or so in Edinburgh and now in Oxford of working with people for whom the material imagination has been a primary way of thinking. You have to bring objects, people, and spaces together in very imaginative ways to demonstrate the potential of the word that these talks are addressing, which is design. In 1990, 2 important events which have a bearing on tonight happened. One, Dr. John Ennis graduated in medicine here in Edinburgh, and Piet Hein Eek completed his final show as a designer in Eindhoven. Now, those 2 rather unrelated events in the sort of scheme of time have come together tonight. John leaving a thriving career in medicine to invest for all our benefit in Gayfield Creative Spaces, its program, its thinking. And this is only year 1, and I have to say I have been awestruck by the energy and vision of John to try and make something new happen, because I have some sense from my own working life what it actually takes to do something, however modest in scale. And so his upcycling of the former tire depot, a rare sort of building really in Edinburgh. This is a more common one, I think, that we're standing in, if Larne and Turnbull will forgive me for saying so. And we went to Eindhoven, and we went to another building with a former use, the former Philips factory, which is the home for Piet's thriving business. He moved there in 2010, following a 20-year career of working with furniture, designing and making a whole range of work, which he's going to talk to us about in some detail tonight. But I think for those of you who perhaps have seen his website, or those of you who have seen being shown for the first time in Scotland at Gayfield Creative Spaces, open Thursday till Sunday, 11 till 6, and I recommend you go and see it. Here is a wonderful example of the material imagination at work in the field of furniture. It is a very inspiring thing in this world of design that we remember that the material imagination is at the root of most good design. So, John, may I hand over to you?
Thank you. Thanks very much, Amanda. And may I echo your welcome to everyone on behalf of Gayfield Creative Spaces and Creative Scotland. And thanks once again to our partner venue, Larne and Turnbull. My words will be brief and echoing really much of what Amanda said. A warm welcome also to our international guests to Edinburgh. Edinburgh's enlightenment in the 18th century is historical fact, and it's left an extraordinary design legacy. When I first came here in 1985, I had a sense of a city often keen to look back, and perhaps at times to rest on those sandstone laurels so favoured by the 18th century designers. Today, Edinburgh is a thriving city with a dynamic economy and an exciting creative industry sector. It's a connected city. Yes, we have trams. In a way that's transforming business. Thanks to Edinburgh City pioneers like Jim Galloway at the City of Edinburgh Council, we're also keen to learn international lessons. I was pleased to join Jim to meet a delegation from Toronto 2 months ago to learn about what makes a Canadian city thrive. But we don't need to look across the Atlantic for examples of cities with a future in mind and creative industry at their core. Looking to Europe last year, I've learned much from Holland and would echo Amanda's words there. Another small nation with a rich design history, and one that values and nurtures its visual culture and creative design industry in highly effective ways. Tonight, I welcome with Amanda Piet Hein Eek. Dutch design has many facets, and the Netherlands has an extraordinary capacity to provide for its designers their training, their nourishment, and their capacity to create wealth in its local communities for the wider Dutch economy. One preeminent city in this regard is Eindhoven, and Amanda and I had the great joy to visit there. I recall a taxi drive through the streets, and we kind of engaged with the taxi driver as one might, and you must see some great things in this cab. And his startling response was, yes, we are a great city, and you know it's ranked the cleverest in the world. It's certainly home to some extraordinary creative businesses and to one of Europe's top design schools, Design Academy Eindhoven. My passion for design, and in particular intelligent design, has made me, and I make no excuse, an adoring fan for several years of Piet's wonderful work. And Piet's passion for design has many layers, and I'm thrilled that he's here to share some of those with us this evening. So from Eindhoven to Edinburgh today, it's very much my honour and privilege to welcome Piet Hein Eek.
Well, although I'm used to talking, it always feels quite inconvenient. And I always start apologizing and saying that it will be quite a chaotic story. And I know where I end. That's what I thought when I started, when I got my degree. So the end will be okay. And for the rest, it will be chronological, which makes it easy for me to talk about. And I hope it will be understandable for all of you. It's not really a design story, because I don't like designing only, so I like doing everything. So the whole story is about everything I do and how everything connects, hopefully. So I thought I'd start with the first piece of furniture I made, and this is on my hand here. It's smaller than my thumbnail, and I made it when I was 13 or something, and I always made complete houses and structures from matches. So my mother kept all the matches, and then I cut with a surgeon knife and glue and rope on my room upstairs, small, well, complete villages and so on. And that was at that moment the best thing I could do, because I didn't have machines, I didn't have money, I didn't have materials, so the matches were the only way to make something. And in fact, it's sort of representative for everything I've done afterwards, using the tools and the opportunities which are available. I have to find. Well, and this is, I make a little jump now. It's my the cupboard I made for my degree from scrapwood. And everybody, the question which is most asked to me is, why did you choose scrapwood? I think I told that story thousands of times. And after 900 times, I thought it should be a little bit different, the story. So I changed it, and because in the beginning I always told that I was walking around at a lumberyard. In Holland we have lumberyards, like where you have old materials, and old wood is recuperated. When I was a little child, my father made rabbit houses from old wood, and so everybody uses old wood for things which are not respected, which are not valuable. So I was walking there, I needed some wood to repair something else, because that wood is cheap, and I was a student, and I thought this is much nicer than all the other materials I'm supposed to work with. And there is plenty of it, and it's cheap. So I thought this is the perfect material for a student. So this was the story, but the real story is that right from the beginning, from the matches and even before, I always have been inspired by the material. And if you're not inspired and focused on material and you walk on a lumberyard, you don't recognize the quality. So it didn't start walking around there. It started by looking at materials and techniques and all other things as an opportunity to make something with it, and specifically to do something which is possible. To make something which is possible and which works. This sounds silly. A cupboard which works, because you think every cupboard opens and closes and there are drawers in it. But when I got my degree at the Design Academy, you were supposed to make designs for serial production. And it's not possible to make a series for your exam. So there were mock-ups, only one. And if you walked against to a cupboard and you wanted to open a door, often they said, no, please don't open it, because the hinge is fake We just, because we couldn't make it like it's made because it's a serial product. And I thought, that's stupid. You make something within the circumstances which are there, you want to sell, and you make something which is not sellable because it should be produced. So in fact, you don't cope with the circumstances. So for me, it was the most obvious way to make something within the circumstances. As an example, that I'm able to do that. So if I work for a company which does make series, I'm able to do it. But if there's no series, I'm not doing it. So I was very, very, very proud always to say I sold everything I made for my degree, which were 3 cupboards and 3 sofas. Nowadays, I dare to say that it was family and friends. But even my mother wouldn't have bought a cupboard where the hinges didn't work. So it was quite important. And in this cupboard, as you can see, there are all kind of smaller pieces of wood, specifically here. If you open the door, there is a huge amount of small drawers. And I use these drawers to make a structure, to get the structure out, to be able to use small pieces of wood. Because scrap wood is a very bad quality, and if you put it in the machines, it takes a lot of time and effort, so it becomes expensive, and then you don't want to throw it away. But because the quality is so bad, you know, it's twisted and it has holes in it and metal parts, because of this quality, you can't use long pieces of wood. So the whole cupboard is designed with the idea to use the smallest possible pieces of this very, very expensive material. For me, it was like gold. So I made a design, and in fact, this is the way, for every design, I can tell a story about the machine and the material and how it was the most logic way to do it. And I don't think it's really designing, it's more like a way of thinking. So now we go to my office. This is my office. It's chaos. It's already in the new space, so it's recent. I like chaos around me, and I didn't understand why. But if there's a lot of things happening, there's also a lot of things to think about. And if you think all the time, there's a lot of ideas. And if you have a lot of ideas and you can produce them, you have all the time new ideas to actually make money, because that's where I live from. So if I have chaos around me, I like it. The only problem is that we have a company of about 100 people, and not all of them like the same chaos. So I need a team which likes the same way of working as I do, which is not always easy. Specifically, the administration doesn't like it. But we're all in one room, which looks like this space. And the little cupboard at the back, and that's why it's already shown now, the wood one with all the rubbish on top of it, because I collect everything around me which I'm thinking about working with, and it's really bad. And that cupboard is one of the first ones I made. And when I started, after selling all those pieces to family and friends, we got commissions again from friends. And after the first one, I always said the first one was directly a very bad experience, but that's not true. The first commission was quite nice, but the second one was a disaster. So I made this cupboard, and I agreed that we made a cupboard for between 1,500 and 2,000 guilders. It's something like 700 euros to 900 euros. And then I came to deliver the cupboard, and I said, well, it was way more, the work was way more than I thought, so it has to be 2,000 guilders. It should have been more, but okay, this is what I said. And they said, no, we agreed 1,500 guilders. So I said, well, then I take it with me again, and I decided never to do anything for friends and relatives again. Because what you do is you want to make the most beautiful thing for the less money possible, and still you have an argue. So I thought, I can't win anything by working like this, and I start doing the things I like. I really like myself, so not for somebody else who says to me what he wants, but I do what I really like, and if I'm not able to make my money, I will make something really stupid, like a window or something, but not in between. It should be either something which is really something to be proud of and heading for a direction I want to go for, or something which has nothing to do with it, so that it's quite clear what my fingerprint is. And this was a good decision. It was completely against every economical sense, because we didn't make money at all, and we wouldn't make money. It would even be less, because if you don't make products for your clients, where do you make products for? I started making it, and I made the cupboard, the round one with the 4 doors. We call it the Rotterdam cupboard because I found the doors in Rotterdam in an Art Deco building. And I started making more. I already made a few door cupboards. Once when I was walking around in a building, I saw a door and I thought, this is a beautiful cupboard. And from that moment on, every door was potentially a cupboard. And I started collecting doors and making cupboards, but now I thought I make more and more of those because this is what I like and it's inspiring. And the funny thing is that we made a showroom of 4 by 4 meters and this cupboard was in it, so it was filled by one cupboard more or less. And the doctor of the neighborhood, whom I didn't know, came in by coincidence and he said, I love this cupboard, I want to buy it. So all of a sudden, the choice which wouldn't bring any money was one of the biggest turnover until that moment, because we could ask what we thought it was worth. You know, we didn't have to say 1,500 guilders. We could just say, well, that one is quite expensive. It was 10,000 guilders. So, and the doctor was rich. It's not Dr. John, but and I sold the cupboard, and more or less this happened from that moment on. We started selling those products we made, and in fact, we set up a direction in our own direction because people saw what we wanted to make ourselves instead of bought what they wanted. So it was a very, very, very important choice to make. So then there's another choice. I was a little bit before the other picture, but I was having breakfast with my wife at Eastern, I think, and I was making money like -1 guilder per hour or something on year base, so we were losing money. And I said, I'm going to start a campaign. And she looked at me and she had to laugh and she spit all of she was eating over the table and my drawings because I was always drawing. And she said, how can you make a campaign if you don't have money? I said, well, I have a trick. There's a lot of magazines coming up now and they need content because there's no content. At that moment, the interior magazines there were a few of them, and each month or each week there was a new one and they were empty. But they need to have content to exist. So I thought if I make new stuff and I show and call them and I say, I have a new cupboard, I have a new cupboard, at a certain moment they will start printing it. So that's what actually happened. At a certain moment they start calling us, do you have new cupboards or do you have new products? Because they need it to fill it. Nowadays it's completely different. There are so many designers and you know, there's even too much content. But when I started when the magazines were growing also. And at a certain moment they thought, he is in the magazines all the time. So we had like 14-page covering stories and so on, you know, and not once but every month. So it was totally, I've like this high of those kind of things with all yellow papers, you know, like it's incredible. It was like 17, 18 times. One issue was at least 10 items of ours, which was good for publicity. And they thought at a certain moment, he should pay for it. He should buy an advertorial or something because we mention him all the time. So they called me and they said, you should have an advertorial and you should pay for it. And I said, no, you don't understand it. What we do is we earn money and we put that in new products. And that's what we like and what we're able to. And you use those products for the content and then you sell advertorials to other persons. And they said, yes, that's logic. So they never called again. So now it's a little bit about the production, which is it's a series of images about our products from the start until now, perhaps, I don't know. It's quite important to understand what we're doing, to understand that we're producing in Europe as a company when we started, and it's still like that, with almost no turnover and with very small quantities. So we have to develop products without spending a lot of money, and if we start production, we're not able to have like huge costs. So both the development and the starting costs should be low. So we start with a disadvantage which is tremendous, because the normal idea about producing is that you produce quantities and you're able to reduce prices and gain money by those quantities. But we were just not selling a lot, so we had to make products, one-offs, series of 5. If it's a chair, we can make 30 at once, but never hundreds. So this is a very difficult game, because I see it as a sort of game, and it's a rule, because if I cheat, I am not able to make a product. And in this product you can actually see how it goes, how it turns out, because normally, if, for example, the building we're having is from Philips, they know if I want to have a lampshade, we sell 100,000, we make a mold of 100,000 euros, and each 10 seconds I get the same mold. And we know, well, we don't sell 100,000, so we have to put this lamp together from components to assemble a product with different elements, and to assemble it in the most simple way. Well, that's to use blind rivets in this case, or screws, but not like hidden, but shown, because then it's easy to make. So you can see the blind rivets here, and you can also see the shape of it. And the nice thing about this process is that if it succeeds, you're able to produce more or less an affordable product. And if it really succeeds, people like it, what you do. So what was a disadvantage, that you have to put energy in it, might become an advantage at the moment that it makes it more beautiful. So what I try to do is to use this energy we have to make the product better, and specifically different from the mass production examples. So this lamp is still in the collection, and we still make like 20, 30, 10 at once regularly. But then we had, all of a sudden, we had the difference with the mass production or the normal production industry, is that if somebody wants to have it in copper, we can make it in copper, because that doesn't matter. We don't have starting cost. It's the same machine. We can do it in brass. We can make it longer, shorter, smaller. We can put them together. So we're able to adjust the design in a very easy way to customers' wishes, which is it's a big advantage. And only 4 months ago, I thought about another advantage, which is much bigger, but I never thought about it, is that because we don't have quantities, we don't have stock, many of our products are made customized each time. Our showroom is our storage. We don't need a huge amount of money to have stock, and we don't need the space to have stock. So the whole problem in the beginning of dealing with this lack of turnover and this lack of quantities, and the fact that we solved it in our production, gave opportunities and possibilities nobody has, except if he does the same thing as we do. And now we have a huge advantage of it, because we have like 400 or 500 pieces in our collection, and we like, I think 3/4 we make one-offs. So it's the showroom, and that's it, and website, of course. So this is one of the products I made from the beginning. Again, you see the screws inside, so it's not like a craftsmanship traditional thing, because everybody does it and nobody makes money with it. So our trick is to find a way of producing which is for our machines and our employees the best way. And in the end it works out, but a chair like this has to be made in 1.5 hours. So because if we have a design, we ask the best carpenter to make it, and then the rest has to do it in the same time. So we try to set the level by asking our best to, and then the rest has to follow. It's a trick, and it's really, we're very serious in it. So each product is calculated, and each person is calculated. So we normally always know whether or not somebody is performing like like they're supposed to. But at a certain moment, I was annoyed about the fact that if you produce efficiently, you can't use a leftover piece of wood which is somewhere. So like for a leg, and you put all the pieces of wood which are big enough to make legs, and you put them on the shelves, and then you start making the chair, and you cut all those pieces which are perfect for the leg, and you make the chair. The chair is as nice as this one, but it takes twice the time. So what we do is we buy a huge amount of wood, and then we cut huge amount of legs, like 100 legs or 50 legs, and then we're able to produce in time. So in fact we have leftovers, which we throw away. We don't throw it away, I keep them, but in industry they throw it away, not because it's a leftover, but because labor is so expensive. So the only reason that it's a leftover is labor, is that we don't have the time to we don't have enough time to put in a decent way and to do the things which you normally, if you would have all the time at home, you would never throw away a piece of wood like that. You would cut the leg. But business-wise, it's stupid to do it, so you throw it away. Although we have a lot of products of our own leftovers during the years. So I thought I'd turn it around. I act as if labor costs nothing and material is worth a fortune, which is true. It was 1999. And so there was a new game. So I asked the guys, well, just start piling up with the leftovers from the cupboard and make a stool. So the left one was the first one we made, so a similar model. And the only thing you could do with it was sit on it, which is quite a stupid way to make a stool, because every other production method will be more efficient than this one. But we like the result very much, and it should be on the eye straight, so not in molds. Yeah, it should take some attention. I wanted to have people adding energy and labor and time to it. And then we started making the table, which is a little bit right on the picture, and was an internee. And from leftovers completely, it was completely bended through when it was ready, so we had to put a piece of iron on it beneath, and it was the quality was not that good. And he came to me and said, well, it's finished, it's quite nice, and what to do with it? I said, well, just lacquer it 10 times, as long as it is a lot of work, because work was for free, you know, so that was the game. And it was an internee, and it's very nice to have, you know, I thought then he has 2 weeks of work, so I see him back after 2 weeks. So he lacquered, and the idea, in fact, came to me because we renovated a Riva, a boat, and we had to lacquer that one also 10 times. And it's a sort of like yin-yang, you know, like lacquering, sanding. It's almost... well, you get happy by repeating this effort and this work. So I said to him, just lacquer it 10 times, and then I'll see you back over in a while with boat lacquer. So he was away for a week or two, and he came back, and it was wonderful. Everybody was astonished by the effect, because the pieces of wood were like ceramics, like tiles, because the lacquer goes to the corner. We never thought it would be like that, but it was a coincidence. He just lacquered. And then we thought, well, shall we take this table to a fair? Each year we attended the same fair, and we thought, should we take it as a story? Because when we start calculating, because labor is not for nothing, of course, we stopped calculating at 13,500 euros. And we thought, and our most expensive table at that moment was 750 euros, so it was 20 times more expensive. And we thought, well, let's take it. And at least we have a story about attention, about labor, and what we're doing actually at this moment. And we took it to the fair. And before the fair opened, a dentist came in and he said, I want to buy the table. I said, are you sure? I thought it was stupid, but he said, no, I want to. I said, if you drink a cup of coffee and you still want to have it, you're allowed to buy it. So he was back in 2 minutes. I think he burned his mouth. And bought the table. And 2 hours later, 2 guys were quarreling who was going to buy the table. So I said, well, it's already sold. So I was thinking about 2 years later, 3 years later, a long time later, how is it possible that you do everything which is against every rule economically to have a good product, and in the end you do completely the opposite, and it's the best product you ever had, because we sold of this product a lot, but we made a series of other waste material products, and the whole idea is add as much labor as possible and use as much material as possible, and try to do it in a sort of natural way, and this became an important part of our company, and we have several streams of leftovers which are not there anymore. We even cut extra wood to make the leftover table, so we cheat. But it's leftover wood in the first place, so it's not really. But I was thinking, how is it possible that it becomes a success when you do exactly the opposite of what you normally do if you want to have a success? So I thought the reason why I did it is the fact that you're not allowed to put attention to a product. So in fact, you don't have time to do your work in a proper way. That's everybody's story. And everything you buy is made with as less attention as possible. Even if you produce in Africa, even if you produce in low labor cost countries, the whole idea is to do it efficiently. And we lived in a time for decades where there was only one truth, in Holland at least. I think in Scotland it will have been the same. If you work as less as possible, for as much money as possible, then you're doing quite a good job. That was the truth for employees, for everybody. Every negotiation is about how much do I get for my effort. And if I have a lot of free time and I have a lot of money, I've done a good job. But of course you can exaggerate this truth. You know, it brings efficiency, but in the end it also means that it brings a lack of attention. And then there all of a sudden there's a table which is only attention. So I thought it's the reason why I turn it around is probably the reason why people buy it and recognize it as a total different quality and a total different idea. And it's very much about the way I want to work and try to work. And just to show a brother and sister story, this is the 99.12% cupboard. And it's called like that because there's less than 1% leftovers. So it is one sheet of metal, which we cut on the cutting machine, and then we punch it, and then we bend it, and the little holes to connect it are the leftovers. So if you have a bigger cupboard with the same concept, you have more leftovers, but it's the same amount. It's one hand of leftovers just to be able to put it together. And again, the material and the wish to be as efficient as possible with the material and also with the technique is the starting point for the design. It's like the first scrapbook cupboard, like the leftover, and now it's the 99.12% cupboard. And the prices are material orientated. So if copper is high, the cupboard is more expensive because the material part is most important of the price. So we have a copper, a brass, an aluminium, a steel. This is our workplace, the wood. On the left we have a metal workplace, a ceramic workplace, an upholstery, lamps, all kind of things. And the showroom is around it. This was actually the reason to buy this place, was that it was possible to put the workplace right in the heart of the whole company. So wherever you are, you see the place where the products are actually made, which was for us very important. It's very light, as you can see. And when we bought it, it was totally dark. So on the roof there was wood and metal and tar, and the windows to the street were painted, and they painted the whole building in 3 colors: purple, green and brown. And if there was light in the building, it was because there was a hole in the roof, but not because there was a window. So you needed a lantern to walk around. We even had some accidents. And I thought immediately, you come in at on the other side of the workplace. On the left you have the workplace, on the right you have the offices, and you walk on in the shop, and then you go up on the staircase, and nothing was there. There was no staircase. And you go to the floor, to the left, and you walk around this workplace. There was also no floor. So, but that was what I thought, and I saw in an instant, and that's what we realized. And the funny thing is, when we had to finance it with the banks, it was in 2009, there was an economical crisis, bank crisis, and I thought it is quite a funny story because of the transparency. We got three approvals by 3 different banks, which is quite amazing because the banks didn't give approvals at that moment, and the plan looked quite nice, but it was totally idiot. But they gave three times. There was from the commission who says whether or not you get the credit. They said yes. And the biggest bank in Holland, ING, when we actually asked to put it on paper and to make the real offer, they said it's not possible. We don't have money. We just got 10 billion, well, a lot of money, from the government because we were bankrupt. So the biggest bank of Holland couldn't give us the money at that moment because they didn't have money. That's the only reason why banks are, that's why they're there. And that was because they were selling and buying products they didn't understand. And that was totally the opposite of what we're doing, because it's totally transparent. You can see actually everything we do. You know the materials, you know who's the designer, you know where it's made, how it's made, from what it's made. even the people in Israel who buy, or in Tokyo, they actually call us and they send an email, and I wanted this table, this size, this color, and send me a picture. So it was the opposite of their problem, was why we were able to actually grow and make this possible. Although it's every day a difficult story, but it's also a nice story. This is a little bit also a story about specialization. So we never specialized. One of the main decisions was not to specialize. A designer has to think about every aspect, from ID until the consumer, because if you miss one thing and it's wrong, it won't sell. So in general, you have to think about the whole process. And if you think about the whole process, I thought, it's better to have it in your own hands, because then if it fails, it's your own fault. If the box is not right, the color is not right, the quality is not right, the delivery is not right, I don't mind. The whole process from ID until consumer is mine. So if I do it myself, it's in my control. So I decided to do everything myself, also because I like that. And then we got this building, which was way too big. The only reason why we bought it was that the workplace was right in the middle, but we looked for 6,000 to 8,000 square meters, and it was in the end almost 11,000 square meters. So it was too much. So instead of a lunchroom, we made a restaurant. Instead of some items around the counter, we made a shop. Instead of working together with young designers, we started renting place to young designers. So everything we wanted to do a little bit, we started doing big. And one of the things we wanted to do is to show art above our sofas. And then we had 2 floors of 500 square meters each left over. So we started a gallery. And in this gallery we had several exhibitions, and one of them was with Tom Klaassen, the artist who makes this kind of statues. He's very famous in Holland. Even on Schiphol he has a lot of art, and along the highway, so it's a really famous big artist. And 1 or 2 weeks before we actually opened the exhibition, he called and he said, I just sold my last wooden man. I said, well, this is the connection between our company and yours. If people come to this exhibition and there's no wooden man, it's stupid. We should make it. Are we allowed to make a series of wooden men for you? He said, yeah, of course, come, you can do it. So I sent him a drawing, and I said, is this okay? He said, yes, it's okay. And then I called him and I said, I think you should come because it's your art. And so he came happily. And he actually explained to one of our best employees that he was doing everything wrong, like I said to him how to do it. And so there was nice. It was the first time my truth was not true, because another artist had other ideas. And we made 6 of them, 2 laying, 2 sitting, and 2 hanging. And we had our wooden man. And when I was going on holidays, because I couldn't attend the opening of the exhibition, because I also have to go on holidays, because I did it when at that moment it was a long time ago. And I was in the car and I thought it's quite funny that a gallery owner makes the art for the artist. But in our concept it's totally normal, because we add as many qualities as possible. We don't hire it, we just want to have those people with us. So the whole concept is to have qualities together, and because of this building it got an extra impulse, because it's so big we had to add a lot of new, like the restaurant, like the gallery, like the ateliers, everything. So now it became even worse than it was already, which this story tells. Well, this is in fact the real story why we moved, not the picture but the copper lampshade on the picture. This is the bakery shop in the red light district in Amsterdam. One of them, because we made I think already 10 or so for them. Because of the red light district I wanted to have copper plissé lamps, like a little bit like a horse, you know. So, and with flower chairs underneath, because I thought it was nice for this environment. And it was very difficult to get flowers because nobody liked flowers at that moment. And the cupboard also everybody disliked, but the owner of the bakery shop and we liked it very much. So we made these lamps. And a few of them were left over. We made too much, and they were in our showroom. And in that showroom, we had like 5 or 6 customers a week. And two of them in 2 weeks bought a lamp. So I thought, this is a good product, because we didn't sell that much. I thought, this is, and it was not even hanging, it was just laying on the table. So I started calling my dealers, so we have a good lamp from copper and I want to sell it, and because the customers like it, and they said, no, we don't sell copper lamps. So I said, yeah, that's why I call you. I have a copper lamp. They said, no, we sell metal, aluminium and glass lamps. I said, yes, I know, because I've seen it, but you should hang. So it became a sort of idiot discussion, which took a long time. And then all of a sudden he said, and I don't like copper. Then I thought, okay, I stop. And then I thought, this is what happens. This is what happens if you sell something, you try to repeat this success until everything is the same, of course, because it's a sort of mechanism which doesn't work. But if we like making new stuff, and people only like us to make the stuff we already made, we're not allowed to do what we like. And we're not allowed to make, we're not even able to sell the new things. And what we did is that we sold a lot of scrapwood. If I make another scrapwood cupboard, they put it next to the other. And if I make another one, they say, yeah, more scrapwood, because it sells. But everybody understands that in the end, it sells less, specifically if you take the square meters. So I had a huge quarrel with several dealers, and then I thought, I'm going to do it myself. And then we'll see what sells or not, but at least I don't have this mechanism between me and the customer, and I find out if people like it or not. And in fact, the whole place we created is one big adventure, and we find out every day things we didn't expect, but we could never have predicted before we started. So it's really nice. It's one of the nicest parts of the new building, is that it provides so much information and so much surprises which we didn't thought they would give. And then this is like a metaphor for the company. The oak glass case, originally designed in 1993 when we started with the company. It's designed originally around square pieces of glass on the Philips lumberyard. I found them, a pallet. I could make 5 or 6 of those cupboards. So the shape now is a little bit different. And so we made it, and we showed it in a gallery in Amsterdam, and we sold 5 or 6 in a month. So it's only success stories, but most of it are not. The little chair which I started with, I dug up from my rubbish because we were making a book about chairs. And in this book, we have the picture of the chair, and then on the left page, or the right, I don't know, the information about it, also the sales. And almost every chair is sold from 0 to 5 times. So it's a very sad book. And then, but the pictures are, of course, as nice. And then the stories are really nice, because for each chair, I had to think about the story of the chair again. And I thought, yeah, and I thought this and that. And then I was bending it like this, and I solved all the problems, and I could make it. And each time when you design a chair like that, or you have an idea, you think, I will sell millions of it. Because that's the whole idea. You know, you're making something beautiful, and each time you think it will be successful. And then after a while, when you have like 10 or 20 or 30 failures, you know, well, the chance won't be that big. Doesn't matter how good the idea is, probably it won't be that big success. But what I know now is that you're in the middle of making a new chair again, which is fun. So at the moment you realize it's not that successful, you have a new potential success under your hand, which gives the possibility to go on. And a few chairs, of course, in this book have like thousands, which are the ones who you need to survive, and probably you need to make those to have those few successes. But this cupboard was made for glass, exactly square, and I wanted to make the complete cupboard with this glass. So the top, the shelves, the sides, the front, the back, everything. So you don't have a lot of choice, so I thought I'd make a square piece of wood and cut out around it all the sizes to put the glass in. And then there is, you can see it here perhaps. I can see it very well. There's a little clip where you clip the glass into the frame. So, and that was a very minimalistic solution. That, in fact, the clip is the only thing I designed, I thought myself. And then we sold 5 or 6 of them, and we thought, okay, we buy the glass and we have a product. But the glass was more expensive than what we actually were selling the cupboard for. So this idea was ended immediately. And then 8 years later or something, we bought a computerized router. And with this router, we were able to make these pieces of wood and all the little holes and connections much better than ever and much more efficient. So I thought maybe with this router, we can make it so efficient that it's possible. And then we adjusted the size of the cupboard to another cupboard we had. To this size, this high and this wide, because we knew that it was good communicating, and everybody understands that when you add a column, it's more expensive and bigger, and when you take it off, it's, you know, it's the size price communication is perfect with this cupboard. So we adjusted the size, and then we called the company for the glass, and they said, yeah, well, the price, we had a 70 to 80% discount because the company had grown in the meanwhile. I didn't know there was so much profit on glass, so you know that also now. And but we could have produced the cupboard even earlier because of the glass was the big problem. And now we sell every week one of those cupboards. Last year we sold 15 to Harris, for example. And the funny thing about it, why I tell it, so this is the normal story, but the reason why I tell it is that it's 25 years ago that I designed it. No, 20 years ago, 1993, the start from my career. And most designers who specialize are not having one idea which they actually make money from 5 years ago. Because the system in furniture design and in design in general is that each year you show your products at Milan or Kortrijk or all the fairs, and what you've done the year before is old. So it's like fashion. And we always thought we just make good products and we show what we make, and next year we make new stuff, but the old stuff is as good as the new stuff, and we always cherished our own products. And if a designer, if I would have been a classic designer designing for other companies, I wouldn't have known that I had the router to make it, and I wouldn't have known that the glass was so expensive, and I wouldn't have had the information that the sales of a different size is much better than the sales of the other size, because this is information which you have if you have a complete story, if you have the whole company. And if you're allowed to use this information, because if you design each time for a different company, normally one design is for them and the other design is for the others. But everything we've done until now is still under the same roof which I just shown. So all of a sudden, because of talking about this cupboard all the time, I thought the reason why we actually exist is that all the energy is still there. All the efforts, all the failures, all the machines, all the craft, everything we've done, everything we learned is in the company, which is totally the opposite what you get if you specialize and if you work in the normal economy like almost everybody is doing. So for me, this cupboard is quite an eye-opener to our own company, because it's almost like a business company idea, but then avant la lettre, I must say. So, and this is funny, we just talked about it. This is the 40-40 collection. It's made from the leftovers from the leftover collection. So I thought, well, you can always exaggerate something. So we still throw away. So and they are so small, so if we cut everything in the same size, it's easy to make a design with it. 40-40, so it's either 80 or 40 or 120. So all of a sudden, the material and its size determines the design. And if it's round, it's not round, but it's round with little squares. So it's a very nice series. And each one is unique because it's an idiot amount of work. So it doesn't matter to make a new drawing because it's irrelevant, the drawing. The time it's in the workplace is so much that we just make one-offs each time. And again, it's successful, which I didn't expect. And this is a little cabin we made for one of the most favorite, how do you call it, comedians in Holland. I call it Ja, it's Dutch. Hutje op de hei. It's a shed in the nature. And it more or less reflects the whole story of what I've been telling, and the only thing what I did think about when I started. When I made the scrapwood cupboard, I had to write down an A4 with a thesis, with my ideas about life and how things should be and so on. And for a student making cupboards, it's the worst thing to do, specifically with a typewriter with correction lint, you know, so there were no computers, and I was always making everything very filthy. So it took me one day to have one neat piece of paper, and I didn't like it at all, and I didn't like writing. Now I write a lot, but at that moment I didn't. But I wrote down that if you want to flourish, you have to feel like a fish in the water, and which means that you first should put your energy in creating your own environment, knowing that you perform better in a good environment than in a bad environment, which gives you the biggest chances of success and at least the biggest fun also. This is in fact the only thing I've always put a lot of energy in. So the whole company, the whole building, the employees, everything I do is only trying to get this basic situation where I feel comfortable. And recently I added to this that we like to know the future. So you want to be rich, and then you start thinking about the future, and you think about how you become rich. That's sort of goal, you know, I don't know, but it's a goal. But you can set all kind of goals, and those goals are always sort of part of future. And we like to predict the future. And I think the reason for this is that we're very bad at it. So we don't know the future, so we want to know it. And what we start doing is to add a huge amount of energy to actually predict it, and then make a plan, and then try to achieve the plan. And if somebody has finally achieved it, everybody says, hallelujah. And nowadays I think that's a pity, because he probably didn't grab the chances which were also there and which didn't take a lot of energy to do, but he just was like focused on one point, forgot to live, forgot to do easy things which are even nicer. You're in Berlin instead of Milan, but what the heck, both nice. But we have a culture where we actually want to predict and do and almost make the future, which is stupid because we're very bad at it and it takes way too much energy. So if you create an environment where you can do what you want and you don't know what it will be, then it's much more efficient. It's energy efficient. And one of the good examples, and the last one, is this. This is a project. It's a bust. Call it a bust? Bust. Bust. I know. I knew it was wrong. It's a bust, and it's made of rubbish. So not leftovers, but really rubbish. So, and I call it self-portraits because it's my own rubbish. So from the company, from holidays, from home, from everywhere. And we just pile up rubbish until it's a bust. This is carton. And we made one of plastic from the beach. We made one of, I have 3 daughters. Now, they produce a lot of rubbish. A lot of rings and so on. And we have like, the first one was made of cans and barrels from the spraying cabin. And which makes you think about the amount of rubbish you create, because we started collecting it, and after 2 months we had a bust of 3 meters high. So you get aware about your own production of rubbish. And for me it was interesting. I had the idea already for a long time. It was interesting because it's the biggest added value for material, because it's what everybody regards as wasteless, as useless, as worth nothing. And then it becomes, hopefully, art, which is the highest value. In the end, the only thing which is really valuable is art. So if I would be able to create from nothing art, it would be the best thing in my life, because I don't know, I'm looking for a word. It's the best thing I would have done in terms of added value for materials. And then we do it now at this moment, we're making it, we're finished, in fact, but we worked last half year, 3/4 of a year. So I hired a guy to make it, and at the same time, we're having a very economically very hard time with the business. So I start making busts, knowing that I won't sell them probably because nobody is waiting for my bust. Nobody, you know, they want tables, no bust. On the other hand, you're having a hard time. It's more clever to do something new than something you've already done. But the good thing about it is that, and I thought about it recently because I actually noticed it, is that the guy was making it, but the whole company was walking along and they liked it. So it gave a sort of energy and a positive energy instead of negative, because you know, if everything is difficult and it's hard making money, it's very nice that something creative is coming. And I noticed that the people who work with us were happy about this. So it inspired and gave energy to the other part of the company also. So in the end, it was perhaps even on that aspect a good decision to do it. And for me, it was at least a way to do what I like. And if everything goes wrong and I was allowed to make this, it's better than it goes wrong and you didn't do what you like. So for me, it was also an example of the way I would like to come to my end. Thank you very much.
There's just so much in that had a lot of resonance for many of the things that we're trying to do at Gayfield. I think the quote, or your sense of creating a place where you feel a fish in water, I think that's a fantastic turn of phrase, as a way that permits and allows you to do what you want to do in it, and you feel most comfort. I was struck by also obviously the use of materials and the reuse and the generous approach to labour. Has that given you any conflict, the sense that you've put that the products take so much time and so much effort to produce, and they're therefore very expensive to sell?
So you make something and it costs what it costs because you need a certain amount of money for the material, for the employees, and then there's a price, and then you need something for the wholesale and everything, and in the end you have the price, and if people don't want to have it for that price, it's not successful. That's why there are so many zeros in the book probably. And happily we also have a lot of products which are successful, and the funny thing is that it seems nothing to do with price. The price, we have the most expensive pieces sell quite well, and we have the Crisis series, which is started in 2002 in the crisis to annoy people, because everybody was complaining about crisis but still very rich. So I thought I'd make a chair in a bag and they can put it together themselves. So like, here you have your chair. And then we were not able to count, so we always missing rings and bolts and so on. So in the end, we just started putting it together. It was cheaper, but it's still called the Crisis series, made on the same router. And this series is very successful. At the same time, the most expensive pieces are successful. So the price is not the major theme. I don't know what it is, but in the end, it's about whether or not it's a good product.
I was very struck by that final image of, you know, the waste from the waste, and this sort of creative space that gave or gives a kind of sense of energy to the company, that sort of fish and water. Is this something that you have realised? I mean, you have 90 people. That's, you know, there are a number of people in this room, I suspect, who are working on a much smaller studio scale. It seems to me that that's the ethos of a studio in a factory. And that's something I don't think we see here in the same way. Is this something that you have arrived at quite recently through experience, that understanding of what that energy has in terms of creative value?
Yeah, I think so. I felt what I wanted to do, but I didn't knew it. So a lot of I always say the knowledge I have is afterwards. specifically the economical things. I'm always busy with figures, but I'm never able to make the right figures, but afterwards it's much easier. So, and it's the same with the fact that now I realize how it works in the company, with the people, with the energy. But what I did know is that I wanted to have this company, I don't know how to call it, with a lot of people together, because I thought I would miss the capacity or the critical mass to do what I wanted with a few people. So for me it was clear it had to be rather big. For the rest I didn't mind how big, but it needed to be at a certain moment 14 was nothing. So and then if it's 100 or 50 or 150, it doesn't matter. It's more that you're able to cope with the problems which belong to a certain size. And those problems are very nice, I must say, if you survive. But working with a lot of people and with this energy and the way they perform and how you're able to stimulate them or to keep them together, I like all those aspects very much. If you don't, you shouldn't do it. But for me, it's a sort of everyday's game, and I'm looking at it and experimenting, and then I think, well, this works, this doesn't work, and yeah, it's nice.
Yes, the hindsight is a beautiful thing, and as a Danish philosopher, comic said, it's very hard to predict, particularly about the future. So I see you've landed yourself in the middle of all of that. But where did you get the faith? For me, I would always catch myself thinking, oh, 90 people and their families have got to make some money. But you seem to have the faith and keep your base in yourself and just go with it. Has that slowly developed, or do you think you just always had it, or where did that all come from?
It's both. So I think it slowly developed, so you grow. And if I would have the problems I have now, if I would have had them 20 years ago, I think I would die in one day. But now I don't think those problems are that big. So, and in general, I think I like it. I like problems. I like, you know, it's like all the time thinking about, you know, how if I do this and this is a problem, and then I call, and then it's a big game with where you can lose and you can win. But I like the game by itself, so I don't have to win. I just have to play the game. And I think that's always been the case. And that's also why I look for this situation. I create the chaos, I call it, but I create something, and then, but it's, to my wife I always says, you can also do nothing. Because she asks she sees what you see, and she asks what you ask. And so we have a lot of problems about that. And then I said, yo, you have to choose. Do you like a man who does something, and where you're all the time thinking, oh no? Or do you want to have a man who's sitting next to you on the sofa? But because I don't think there's much in between. There is always a difference between two persons, and I'm not stressed about it. Of course, sometimes I'm a little bit stressed, but in general, I'm not stressed.
There are a few philosophies that are completely on your team. In the now, live in the now, go for the now, meditate for the now. And it's just that we've gone away from it, which was why I asked, where do you think you got it from? Because it seems to be, you're not alone in that belief, it's just that we've forgotten about it in the West a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just to kind of how to foster.
But for me, as an example, when we were making the building, 1 month before, we had like 60 people, contractors working on the building, 60, so it was every month a lot of money. And then the bookkeeper came to me and she said, I made a mistake. And she gave me each month the figures, but she gave this just before paying the everybody instead of after. So I thought I could pay them once again. And I thought, well, it's so much money. But it was the other side, upside, and then I thought, oh shit. So we had a gap of 300,000 euros at that moment. So, and we didn't have the money. So, and I thought, well, it's 1 month, That's exactly the time we need to pay. So they don't know it. So as long as they don't know it, I'm going to finish the building. So we finished and we got in and we got a huge amount of problems afterwards. But at the same moment she came to me, the same morning, we had the factory was completely covered with pipes. And we took everything out and we sold most of it as old steel. And we kept one container to make the bar, which is the bar in the restaurant. But we still had a container afterwards because the container is huge. The bar is big, but the container was so much. So we had a huge amount of leftover pipes. And then I thought, oh, those pipes, I'm going to pile them up as chairs and sofas. And I make a pipe collection and we show it in Milan. And then and I thought about the whole presentation in Milan, which was going to be a few months later. And I was so happy. So I forgot all the problems she gave me. So that's as long as I'm allowed to have this energy. The negative parts are, it's like a balance, of course, but the whole structure provides so much energy, positive energy, that you're also able to cope with negative energy. And if it becomes bigger, the other part becomes also bigger. So it's still balancing. And it's a lot of fun. So.
I wanted to ask you about the business model, because Holland are leading the way in other business models, like leasing things rather than buying things. And we want to encourage consumers to lease more rather than having things. And your products are of a very high quality, so therefore you probably just buy one for life. Do you ever consider in your business model a leasing model where people can hire your products, or do you only want them to buy them?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, but there's two things. If you lease because you want to change all the time, I feel uncomfortable with that. I think it's very nice if people buy a product for life. And we do have a lot of customers who buy one thing and then another thing because they need more than one table, so that's good. And there's not many of our products on internet because people actually buy it with the idea to use it for the rest of their lives. For me, that's a beautiful thought. So, and of course, not everybody will have the same ideas, but there are some people who do have. But we lease the machines financially, so then we get it. For me, it's important to have the machine. But that's the only. That's.
So you don't own the machines. You lease your machinery.
No, we lease them financially. So we lease them in 5 years, but that's purely financial. But it's. I want to have the machine. It should be mine. Because we do all kind of strange things with machines. We put materials on it which are not allowed, and then after 5 years it's paid, and then it's for free. Then you can completely do what you want with them. So one of our major things is, as soon as we have money, we buy a machine. You can see if we earn money, we spend it immediately. We didn't buy a machine for a while. we bought the building.
I just would like to ask about the role of the materials you use in creating your brand. The fact that you use reprocessed wood, as I understand it, and other materials, which gives a sort of sense of uniqueness to the items you make, although the designs are infinitely reproducible in another sense. So it seems to me you've kind of created an artisanal brand, a brand that feels unique, although the trick in it commercially is that in fact you can remake these things to infinity. But I know you won't do that because the market wouldn't allow it, but you've actually managed to close the gap between these two things, which a lot of brands can't do because they're either mass-produced or they're so unique that they can't be easily reproduced at all.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, difficult question, but not difficult to answer. But there's many layers in it. Like I just gave the example of the Crisis collection, which is really serial produced. There are sometimes we sell 40 tables at once, and still the people have the feeling that they buy something very special. So that's more or less the image. But I also feel that it's special that we make it. Because it's not so easy to make 40 tables in Europe and survive. So in that aspect, all of the products are special. And then we have like the 40/40 collection, which is really unique. But it's only because we say it is. You know, we could make hundreds of the same, which nobody actually sees the difference. They are unique, but for me, it's the uniqueness of what we do is more important than the uniqueness of the products. The fact that the way how we produce it, the way how we design it, the fact that we cope with so many problems almost nobody solves, and we solve the whole series of, because it's not only designing, it's also the production and the distributing. It's the whole setup is almost impossible. Almost all companies which try to do something similar have a problem somewhere which they don't solve. And for us, it worked out by, I think, also by coincidence, and because we worked hard, and because the design is actually totally inspired by this problem. You know, the designs I make are made for our situation, very pragmatic, extremely pragmatic. And also the way what we communicate is what we do. We communicate a lot. I always say we don't communicate, but we communicate all the time. And all the time I say the only thing we have to show is what we do. We don't have to tell what we do. We don't have to do anything. The only thing is keep very close to what we're doing, because that's what people expect. That's what people see. That's what they believe. And I think that makes the normal product also special. But also for us, for me, it's also special to make a crisis chair, even if it's 300. I'm still happy if I look at it and all the joints and that it's from that machine and it's specifically made like that, and that's because of that reason it's strong and it's comfortable and it's a good price. Then if everything comes together, it's a small party.
What do you think would happen if you set off in a design and everything went okay? You know,
if there was a moment like that?
If you started off making something, and instead of having the problems that you've outlined in all the many case studies you've just given us, let's suppose you start making something and everything goes okay. Would that be a problem?
It's not utopia. A few years ago, just after we made the building and things were really going, we had way too much work and we were surviving easily. I thought maybe we never get a crisis because we do so many things different from the rest. Perhaps, and now I don't know if it's a crisis, but we're having problems now. So I didn't like that idea, and I like it that it turns out to be different. But that's more because it in fact is what I think how it is. As soon as you think it's like this, it's different. It's never like you think it is, which is good. But in general, until now, the utopia, I've been doing almost every day what I liked. So that feels like a treasure.
Hello there. Would you say that there's one, when you sell internationally, there's one place more specifically that you sell more in? Or I guess what I'm asking is, what do people see in your work? I mean, I guess people from different cultures see different things, and I just wondered whether you'd kind of thought about that. I'm sure you have, but maybe you
I found out again later on. So, but it's true because it's afterwards knowledge. The first dealer was in Japan, Tokyo, and they selected us, and they wanted to work with us like we wanted them to work. So it was a very, very, with Mac, very small Japanese guy, very nice, and he was the first, and they liked it very much. They liked the whole concept. And then I was in Japan, and we visited a lot of industries and so on, and they cherish craft in Japan. That's what I knew. Everybody knows that. But they cherish materials much more than we do. They make smaller items so they don't throw away. But I was in one of those factories, and the best carpenter, so the highest in rank, determined what was rubbish and not. So in Europe, the worst carpenters just throw everything away. So in Japan, the best carpenter says, this we put there, and this we keep, and this, and so this is totally the opposite. And if you get a degree, you have to, how do you call it, make an oath or something, that you use as much as possible from a tree, which is again the opposite of what we do. So the Japanese have a tradition of labor and craft, and also attention for materials. So the small pieces which are lacquered is completely their world. They understand it, they understood it, they were the first to understand it. And then America had a huge problem with our ideas. Also to represent us completely on the long term. That's two words they don't like. So because they want their money back yesterday, and they don't want to think about the long term, and so it was completely again. And they want to cherry pick, and they want to decide themselves. So it was. I explained it to many Americans, and they never said yes. And after a while, one guy came back from the Future Perfect, and he said after 5 years or something, and he said, "Piet, I think you're right. We should do it, not with the other brands, but with your brand, we're going to do it." And so he started buying containers, and most of the time when he buys a container, before it's actually delivered, he sold everything. So it's extremely profitable for him, and he didn't even have the problem because he sold everything. But now, and he's very happy with it, and probably again because it's the opposite of what everybody does. So we represent something which is normally not done in America, and that's why they like it. So in Japan they like it because it's what they know, and in America it's because it's the opposite. So there's always a reason why it might be successful. Those are the two, America and Japan. Italy was also very good, but now it's bad since black money is away there.
Yeah, you've obviously been in the vanguard of using reclaimed materials, as that's your sort of modus operandi, and speaks of your commitment to environmentalism. And I know since you started, there's much more awareness of these issues, and how much do you think what you're doing is impacting on wider design community and the way people are choosing
to other people
what to buy? Huh?
You mean if I influence with what I do others?
Yeah. Do you think there's a ripple
you
effect
mean,
of what the way that you work?
Or it's a nice way of asking if there's a lot of copies or if I'm influential. So
well,
people can copy the idea.
That's going on. That's going on. But no, I mean, in a serious sense, you know, the fact that you are doing what you're doing, do you think that is helping shift the way the market is towards a more environmentally sustainable situation?
Oh yeah, I think so. I hope, but in a slightly different way than I get a little bit annoyed if people start talking about environment, because it's a sort of fashionable, and often when you start thinking, often there are positive and negative issues about each. You know, like recycling is often bad for environment, and everybody says the recycling is good. Or if you buy a wooden bench from IKEA, which is FSC wood, but you throw it away after a year, it's worse than a wrong wood bench which you keep 100 years. So there is a lot of things we create to be able to consume, and in this discussion, this is a sort of problematic line. You know, all the time I get, oh, you shouldn't buy it. So that's something like that. You know, if you're in a car, you're polluting. So if you're not in a car, it's much better than in a less polluting car. So, and we try to make less polluting cars instead of changing the habit of sitting in the car all the time. So there are so many solutions which are so much more down to earth to this kind of problems that I don't feel comfortable all the time being pushed in the environmental corner. So I try to make good products in a sensitive and a good way, but not specifically it's green. And I don't think people buy a scrap wood chair because it's from scrap wood. They buy it because it's beautiful, because it's comfortable, because it's nice, and if it's also recycled wood, then it's a very, very, very positive thing. But you should never say, this is recycled wood, so you should buy it. You know, it's a natural part of a process and where you have so many decisions that it's not always sensible to do everything environmental. Then you reach probably less in the end.
It's been a real pleasure listening and seeing, and thank you to John, to Creative Scotland and Lyon and Turnbull for facilitating it. And you'd like just to join me in thanking Piet.
Thanks.